Daf Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the top. Omer Shmuel Kol Shebechatas Mesa Bepesach Karav Shleim. In any of the cases that you have that by Korban Chatas, where you can't be makriv of the Chatas, and the halacha l'maish misina is that it's left to die, meaning it's not left to graze to get a mum and then you sell it. You lock it up and it's left to die. A corresponding case by the Korban Pesach is that the Korban Pesach would be Karav Shlomim, that you be makriv it Shlomim. The Chatas is not left to graze, the Korban Pesach is not left to graze, it's Karav, it's not left to die. The Chatas, it's Allah L'Moish Misin, it's left to die. By Korban Pesach, it's Karav Shlomim. So, this is not, as Rashi explains, it's not because, they're not connected in the Svaras and the Tamim. This is just a way to remember. It's a way to remember what the halach is, that by a Chatas, if you have a Chatas where the case is Mesa, it's not Raya, it's not left to graze. Similarly, by a Pesach, it's not left to graze. What is it by Pesach? Korav Shlomim. So there's a halach l'mayshim yisinai that if you have a Chatas, that there's vlad Chatas, if the Chatas was in the keva and gave birth, that vlad, that child, is you're not makriv it, and it's left to die. That's a vlad Chatas. You have a Tmura's Chatas. If the person made a Tmura, where if, for instance, you had a Korban Shlomim, you would be makriv it. Over here, by a Chatas, it's left to die. And you have a case of the Chatas Shemesu Ba'aleh, if the owner died. So it's not passed on to Yorshim. Other Korbanos are passed on to Yorshim. Here, it's not passed on to Yorshim. Over here, it's left to die. Or you have a case of a Chatas Shekipu Ba'aleh, a Chatas where the owner had a kapara with another animal. So, for instance, if the Korban Chatas got lost, then the owner brought another animal, he designated another animal, he brought it for the Korban Chatas, so he had a kapara. They find the first one, it's Mesa. And the fifth case is a Chatas Sha'avra Shnasai, that if it became past the first year, if it's past the first year, it's more than 1 year old, then it's similarly, in such a case, it's Mesa. So the assumption is at this point is that Shmuel is referring to all these 5 cases where by Chatas it's Mesa, that by a Korban Pesach it would be in such a case it would be Karav Shlomim. Now it can't refer to the 5th case. I can't refer to the case of the first case of a Vlad Chatas, because if Vlad Chatas, a Korban Pesach has to be a Zohar, can't be in the Keva, so it can't refer to that case. But the cases where it's relevant, all the cases where it's relevant, then the din would be like Korban Pesach, it's Karav Shlomim. That's what we're assuming at this point. So therefore, the rule that Shmuel says is Kol shechatas meisa b'pesach Karav Shlomim. B'chol shebechatas roya, whenever the case would be that by Korban Chatas, it would be roya would graze till it gets a mum, b'pesach nami roya. That's what Shmuel said. Rabbi Yochanan Amar ein ha-pesach Karav Shlomim al shenimtzas achar shchita aval kaidim shchita loy. But Rabbi Yochanan says no. The only case where the Korban Pesach that it's brought as a Shlomim, that it's only the case is that you found it after the Shechita. If you found it after the Shechita, then we say, then there's such a case, it's not a Dochwe, that's considered a Moiser Pesach, and it's Karav Shlomim. But it doesn't apply in the other cases. Maskal Rav Yosef, Uklalahu, is this a klal? Is this a rule? I'd show you that it doesn't apply in all cases where I Chatas Sha'arish Nosa. In the case where the Karva Chatas, it's more than 1 year old. The L'Roya Azla. In such a case, Reish Lakish says that, as we'll see, it goes, if L'Roya it grazes, the L'Roya Azla, the Amar Rabbi Yehoshim ben Lakish. Chatas Sha'arish Nosa. If it's more than 1 year old, for us, we look at it that it's not considered a dochwe, it's not considered nitche, it's just temporarily you can't bring it. We look at it like it's in the basic chorus. So it doesn't have the din of being nitche, and therefore the din is veroya. The din is that it's not mesa, it's left to graze until it gets a mum. And you use the proceeds for Ketzah Mizbeach, to bring it for a Nidus Tzibur. Jesus explains that the reason it says we look at it like a basic forest is because we look at it like a basic forest that it's not nidche, it's just temporarily you have no access to it. You can't get to it. But it's not in itself, it's not inherently nidcha, and therefore it's not included in the halacha Moshe Sinai of Mesa. It's roya. So Reish Lakish says that echata she'arash nasa, it's roya. It's not misa. Ve'ilu b'Pesach ki haigav nekarev shlomim. But a korban Pesach in such a case, we would say it is karev shlomim. It's not roya by the korban Pesach in such a case. It's karev shlomim. The Sanya we learned the pasuk says kesev. Why does it have to tell you a lamb? Kesev l'Rabba says a Pesach la'alya. To be marba that for the korban Pesach that the tail you're also maktir the tail. Kishoimer im kesev. It says im kesev, the reboy is l'Rabba says a Pesach. Shavar shnosai. It's a remarkable case where the Pesach, the animal is more than a year old. Shlomim aboy machbas Pesach, and the case of the shlomim that comes on account of the Pesach, meaning the Meiser Pesach or the Tmuras Pesach, l'chol mitzvah shlomim. That has all the mitzvahs of shlomim, shetum esmich on the sochem etzunufus chalav v'sheik. That it has all these dinim. You have to lean on, you have to bring the nesachim, the wine, the flour, and you have to wave the Hazar Sheikh. Im Eiz, when it says Im Eiz, which is extra Hifzik Inyan, limit al Eiz, She'ain Ton Alya. And it teaches there for Hifzik Inyan, it separates it that the goat is not Ton Alya. You don't burn the tail. Akopan, what do you see over here? You see over here that we say that Pesach, that Avra Shnasai, that Pesach Shavra Shnasai is Karav Shlomim. Now the Chatas, Reish Lakish says the Chata Shavra Shnosai, he says that it's roya. And we don't say that the Korban Pesach is roya, we say the Korban Pesach is Karav Shlom. So you see that they're not tied together. Now, it seems to be difficult with Reish Lakish because how can you say that if it's Avra Shnasa that it's roya? This is one of the 5 cases of the Lach L'Moshe Sinai that by Chatas Mesa. The Gemara answers that Reish Lakish holds it's only if it's Avra Shnasa in conjunction with having been lost. But if it's only Avra Shnasa, it's not wasn't lost as well, then he holds that it's not Mesa, then it's roya. In such a case, that it's roya. So, therefore, we see how can we reconcile Shmuel's klal, Shmuel's principle, with the Korban Pesach. We see that they don't coincide. In the case of Avra Shnasa, it doesn't coincide. Omer Leim, he said to him, he answered that Ki Kamar Shmuel ba'avudim b'tchuim lo yomer. Shmuel said that we connect the two, we relate the two with the Chatas. In the Korban Pesach, it's talking where it was lost, but not with the Chuyim. It's not talking about the case where it was Nidcha. So therefore, it's only talking about one case. It's talking specifically about the case where the Korban he was mafresh the animal for the Korban, for the Chatas. It got lost. He brought another one, and you found the replacement one. In such a case, that's where the halacha Moshe Sinai as a Chatas is Mesa. In such a case, we say over there that the Korban Pesach, in such a case, we say that the Korban Pesach is Karav Shlomim. The Gemara, is that so? In the case where it's lost, is that really true? According to the Rabbanan, where the Korban Chatas was lost at the time when he was mafresh, when he designated. He was mafresh an animal for the Korban. And it got lost. He designated another one, but then you found the original one before you makar the replacement one, the L'Riyazlan. According to the Rabbanon, we say it's not Mesa. That's not the case of the halacha Moshe of Mesa. Then it goes to grace. This non nefesh chatos avda. He's mafresh the Korban Chatas and it got lost. Behefresh acheres tafteha. He's mafresh a replacement one of nimtzas harishayna. Then you found the original one. Varei shtein oimdos, and they're both in front of us. Meaning he was not makar the replacement. We have both of the animals in front of us. Achas mehem tikrav. You're makar one of them. Ushnia Thomas, and the other one is left to die, Diver Rebbe. That's what Rebbe says. But Ein Chatas Mesa. No, it's not Mesa in such a case. Ein Chatas Mesa, El Shenimtzes Lachash Niskabra Ba'aleha. It's only if you found the original one after the owners already had a kapara. then you say that it was nidcha, and you found it afterwards, then it's left to die. But if you found it before you had the kapara, the owner had a kapara, if the original one was found before they were makri of the replacement one, it's left to graze. So the Chacham say in such a case where you have the two animals in front of you, they say that in the case of the chatas, it's roya. But by Korban Pesach, where it was lost. If you found it after chatzos, but before shchita, before you shechted the replacement one, so you have both of them in front of you, then we say korev shlomim. Then we say your makriv shlomim. Now this is going according to Rav Zera, that says in such a case, since you found it only after chatzos, it's korev shlomim. Now there wouldn't be a kasha if we wouldn't go according to Rav Zera, and the Gemara is going to deal with this later. But Gemara is now asking, Lafi Rav Zera, then it's not consistent. Because in the case of the Korban Chatas, when you have both of the animals in front of you, the Baalim didn't have a kapara yet, you didn't shech the replacement one, the Rabbanan say Roya, it's left to graze. And according to Rav Zera, in the case by the Korban Pesach, when you have both of them in front of you, if it was found, the original one was found after Chatzos, it Pesach is Koresh Shlomim. So you see that it's not consistent. More answer, Shmuel Karebi Svirle, the Omra Avuda Lamisa Azla. Shmuel holds like Rebbe. He holds like it's Avuda Lamisa Azla, that it is Lamisa, and so therefore it is consistent. So it's consistent because if it was lost, and then you found it, even if you found it before the shchita of the replacement one, it's Lamisa, similarly by the Korban Pesach. But still not consistent. It's still not consistent because kol avudal Rabbi Mesa, according to Rabbi, by the Korban Chatas, in all cases we say if it was lost, no matter when it was found again, whether it was found before the shchita, after the shchita, or even before the shchita, we say that it's lamisa. It's left to die. And by the Korban Pesach, but in the Korban Pesach, if it was lost before Chatzos, but you found it before Chatzos, so you have both of them in front of you, but you found it before Chatzos, Roya. In the case of the Korban Pesach, it's Roya. It's not Karev Shlomim. It's Roya in such a case. According to Rebbe, by the Chatas in such a case, if you lost it and then you found it a short time later, and you have it in both of them in front of you, it's Lamisa. And over here, by the Korban Pesach, if you lost it before Chatzos, found it before Chatzos, then it's Roya. It's not considered Nidcha, as Rashi explains, because it never had a designation of a Korban Pesach. It's only Korban Pesach, only the Chatzos rather, when the time that you can be Makravit, it puts it as a chasima of a Pesach. And therefore, if you're not Makravit, it's Nidcha. But over here, if you found it before Chatzos, the din is Roya, so you see that it's not consistent. The Gemara says, that's not even considered Ovid. By the Korban Pesach, it's not even considered Ovid. It's not even considered lost. It's irrelevant, because you can't be Makravit at that point, so it's not considered lost. There's no relevancy to it. It's lost at a time when you can't be Makravit. You can't be Makravit before Chatzos. Similarly, we would say by the case of a Korban Chatas, if it was lost at night, where you can't be Makravit at night, it's not called lost. So this is not called lost. So therefore, that's not a kasha. Well, if that's so, then according to Rebbe, what is the case of Roya in the case of the Chatas that it's left to graze? Now Shmuel said the klal is wherever by the Chatas it's Mesa, then by the Korban Pesach it's Karev Shlomim. Whenever the cases by the Chatas it's Roya, it's left to graze, then by Pesach it's left to graze. But if so, what is the case of by a Chatas that you say that is Roya? Now as Jesus explains, you can't say where it was lost at night, because we're just saying that a Vudas Laila is Lav Ovid. Since you can't be Makravit at night, the fact that it's lost is not considered a Nidcha. it's not considered lost, so it's considered irrelevant. Nothing happened. It's like the animal fell asleep. So therefore, what is the case? Where do we find the case of Rebbe that, according to Rebbe, that we say that by chat it's left to graze? The klal is, we're saying that wherever it's by chatas it's mesa, the korban pesach is shlom. Wherever chatas is roya, pesach is roya. What is the case by pesach? What is the case by chatas? Where is roya? The more answers to Rav Yishya. Like Rav Yishya says, the Amar Rav Yishya, hamafish techatos la'achrayas. If a person initially he designated two animals for the chatas, la'achrayas, meaning one is makar one and the other one is a backup. The other one is a backup, a substitute that in case something happens to one, he has a replacement, he has a backup. So if he techatos la'achrayas, miskaper ba'achas man. He's miskaper with one of them, and ushniya tira, and the second one is left to graze. So in such a case where he initially it was mafresh two, then one of them, the other one is left to graze. So there we have a case of roya. Frek the Gemara, how can you say that that's a valid case? That's the case, and that's the case we're talking about. Because that can't be the case, because in such a case where by the Korban Pesach and the corresponding case by the Korban Pesach would be Karva Shlomim in such a case. And therefore, that's not a case where the Chatas is Roya and by the Pesach be Roya. Shmuel can't be referring to that case, because in that case, yes, it's true that the Chatas is Roya, is left to graze, but the Korban Pesach is not left to graze in such a case, because it's not considered nidcha. In such a case, the Korban Pesach is never considered to be that it was rejected, because it was only designated to begin with as a backup, so it's not considered nidcha, it's not considered dochoy, and therefore that can't be the case where Shmuel is saying that by a chatos where it's roya, then by Pesach it's also roya, because on Pesach in such a case it's not roya, it's Korban Shlomim. Hello, the Gemara says, Shmuel, Rabbi Shimon Sfirle. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Shimon. The Amar Chamesh Chatois Mesas. He says that in all the cases, by the 5 cases, the Chatois are Mesas. Meaning, even in the case where he's mafish 2 Chatois, 2 animals, la'achrayas, only for a backup, even there we say that the backup is one of the cases where it's left to die. Meaning, if that's the case, then all of the cases of the chatas is left to die. So, frankly, Gemara, well, if that's the case, there is no case of roya of grazing by the case of chatas. So, what is the klal that Shmuel said that wherever it's roya by a chatas, then we say roya by Pesach? More answers, no, there was a mistake. Shmuel nami chadek. He only meant one case. He didn't correspond and tie together the case of chatas and the Pesach as far as roya. There's no connection over there. He's only said one connection. Kol shebechatas mesa b'pesach kar shlom. He only meant to say that wherever you have the case with the chatas is mesa, that's left to die, the Pesach is kar of shlomim. So what's the chiddush? What's he teaching me with this? So what does he want to teach me with this that we don't know from the Mishnah? The Mishnah says that if a Pesach is found after the case of the shchita, after you shech the replacement one, then it says clearly that in such a case that it's Karav Shlomim. So what is he teaching us that we don't know from the Mishnah? Well, my Kamashal on the one answer, Lapu came in Rav Yochanan. It's coming to exclude the sheet of Rav Yochanan. Because Rav Yochanan says the Omar, he said, Eina Pesach Karav Shlomim El Shenim Sachar Shchita. When do we say that the Pesach Karav Shlomim? It's only if you found the original one after the Shchita, after shechting the replacement. Then you say, well, the original one was not nidcha because it wasn't there at the time of shchita, and it's not nidcha, and therefore it can be makar shlomim. But if you found it before the shchita, even if it is found only afternoon, it was found afternoon, you don't say that. You say that it was there before the shchita, and you weren't makar of it. It's considered to be a nidcha. It's not considered moiser pesach. It's not shlomim. It's a dochi, and it's roya. Al mashchita kava. According to Rav Yochanan, it's what is the kaveya. Whether we say that it's considered nidcha or not, it's whether you found it before shchita or after shchita. So He's coming to teach us not like that. Kamash Malan Chatzois Kova. He wants to teach us that it's Chatzois that's Kaveyat. What's Kaveyat is Chatzois. So therefore, he's saying, whenever you have a case where you have a Chatos, which is Mesa, meaning where there was a lost Chatos and you found the Chatos. There was a lost Chatos. You designated a replacement. You found the original one. So you have both of them. In such a case, and wherever you have such a case, in that case by the Chaz would be Mesa, correspondingly by Korban Pesach. In such a case, it would be Korev Shlomim, meaning to say that even if it was lost before Chatzos, you found it after Chatzos, even though it was before the Shchita, so it's considered it was a lost one, and then it was found by a Chatzos, it would be Mesa, by Pesach, it's Korev Shlomim. But in the case, like we said before, that if it was lost before Chatzos and found before Chatzos, that's not called Avuda. But in the case of Avuda, in the case by a Chatzos, where it's Ovod, or it's Nevad, and it's lost, and now it was then found by a Chatzos, in all cases by a Chatzos, it would be Mesa. Similarly, by Korban Pesach, in all cases, even if it was lost and then found after Chatzos, even if it's before Shchita, also by Pesach, it's Korev Shlomim.